Hey guys, it's been 40,000 miles now on the Exocet, and I figure it's time for an update. Seems like I'm always tinkering and doing something with it, and let's get started on the things I've been doing. So I put some Drag Cartel 2.2 cams in, and it required stiffer valve springs. They were SuperTech valve springs I was putting in, and I screwed up and let one of the valves drop into the cylinder, and so guess what? I had to take the entire cylinder off, or the cylinder head off, that is. And so as long as I've got it off, I decided to do a 4-piston racing head. So this is still the original TSX head, but it's been ported by 4-piston racing, and had to get it retuned, and it put 249 to the hubs. So anyway, it's breathing quite a bit noticeably better and sounds better at upper RPM, as hopefully you guys are soon to find out. So thing I did today was actually made this little heat plate. So this heat plate down here has actually decreased the intake air temperatures from about 25 to 27 above ambient to about 10 to 12 above ambient. I literally just finished it today. I'm really stoked on what a big difference that made. So just keep some of the air from the radiator flowing up into the intake. So, and I could swear the car feels peppier because of it. Not sure if I actually went over the oil cooler I did back in the day. Forgive me guys if I did on a previous video, but as you can see, this little hose right here is actually from an aluminum part that I had welded before I put in the OE water pump. So it actually goes over to an OE heat exchanger there. So it's a liquid to oil heat exchanger there by the oil filter. So next thing, for a few years now I thought I had an exhaust problem being pulled forward, and I couldn't seem to get rid of it, and I couldn't figure out why. Well, turns out the exhaust coming out of the valve cover breather was actually just here in a little filter, and it was getting into the cabin, and I could actually smell that. And now it's actually now down by a hose and down to this filter at the bottom, so I don't have to smell it. Hey, how's it going?
Okay, are you okay?
Yes sir, thank you for checking. Okay. Have a good one. That was nice of him. So anyway, no more exhaust fumes in I guess what we call the cabin, so that's a lot better. So those of you who have a valve cover breather with a filter there up top, you guys are going to be smelling some stuff. So I'd recommend putting the K-swap vent down here, you know, somewhere away where it's not going to get into the cabin. Next thing I did recently was swap out to Rdx injectors. So I had the original TSX injectors until I went with the cams and head work, and they were not going to be adequate anymore. I went to some aftermarket and 775 injectors, and they were great at first, but they clogged because they don't have a little filter basket. Which the problem was the fuel filter that was from the Aeromotive supplied fuel line kit that I've been using was fine with the stock TSX injectors because they have a little basket inside them that filters out microscopic particles, and the 775 aftermarket injectors did not, and so they got clogged and I had to limp the car home. And so now two things I did to solve that problem. First off, just using the Rdx injectors. The car is at 250-ish wheel horsepower, and so now I think the Rdx injectors are good to about 280. So they're close to top, but the tuner was okay. I think we're at 80-something% on the duty cycle, low 80s, high 80s, I can't remember. But the other thing I did was went to an Aeromotive fuel filter. So it's actually under here. You can't see it, but it's a much bigger, it looks like the size of a soda can or so, fuel filter. And instead of 40 microns, it goes down to 10 microns. So hopefully no more fuel filter problems. And I've actually gone through 3 fuel pumps. This is a Deechworks 300 fuel pump. 300 or 400, I can't remember now, but it's hopefully going to last now that there's no more grit coming back through the feedback line and the filter there. Next thing, throttle position sensor. As you can see, that's an Acuity throttle position sensor. So apparently the K throttle position sensors don't take vibration very well, and the B series Honda throttle position sensors take it better. Well, I've gone through 4 of them in 20,000 miles on this engine, and it was finally time to go with a Hall effect sensor. I've had about 3,000 miles on this one, and so far so good. And it's actually easier to modulate the throttle, especially at low RPM. It's real noticeable if I'm just putting around town. So I definitely recommend this Acuity Hall effect throttle position sensor. Next thing, so this is a K-Power Industries intake manifold, and I had actually broken off several grade 8 and then grade 10.9 intake manifold bolts, and so I finally went with ARP bolts. Those are, I think, 30 or 35 millimeters. You guys have to measure, because somebody else on the forum had a different length that worked for him, but these have not broken since I've had this on there, so at least 10,000 miles. So definitely recommend, if you guys are going to go with the K-Power Industries intake manifold, go with ARP hardware to make sure that those bolts slash studs don't break. Next thing, wind deflector. So I've got to give Russ Bergholtz, I think his name is, credit. So I've been using for the first 5-6 years Aeromotive's windshield bracket, and it was kind of heavy and big, and Russ was saying you don't really need something that big, especially if you're going with only a 6-inch wind deflector, which is what I have and what I recommend. Remember, the cars had 12 and 15-inch windshields on it, but I like the 6-inch with a helmet. So all I have is 3 of these clamps attached to this 1.75-inch bar, and it's actually curved a tiny bit. It's hard to tell from here, but that bow that I've put in it, by twisting this one a little bit farther forward, has actually given it a little bit more resistance to bending, flexing, and kind of flapping in the wind. But I think this is the simplest, cheapest, and lightest solution for just a simple wind deflector. And I've driven it with no wind deflector. Believe me, you want a wind deflector. Without a helmet and no wind deflector, you can hardly breathe. And with a helmet and no wind deflector, you can hardly keep your head up. It's so much wind. So yeah, you're definitely going to want at least a 6-inch wind deflector. So next thing is the wheels and studs. So these wheels I got from Goodwin Racing. I was looking at getting some Volk TE37s, but they're very expensive, and there's a many-month wait on those. So these are the Advanti Racing Storm S1s. They're 15x8 plus 25s, and believe it or not, I didn't measure them, but they're 11 pounds. So at $170 something per wheel for the 15x8s, I think that's a great deal. And no doubt they're not as strong as the Volk TE37s, but the Exocet doesn't need that level of strength because it's so much lighter, and there's a huge amount of brake clearance. So what I did is basically the same thing that Flying Miata did, is use a 1-inch spacer. So that's a 25 mil spacer in there, and elongated ARP studs. So we've got ARP studs and a 1 mil spacer, and no vibration. I haven't had good luck with wheel spacers before they introduced vibration when they had their own studs. But these are the actual studs that come through, the elongated ARP studs, this 1-inch spacer, and no vibration. And I've had it at the track, it's fantastic. Speaking of brake clearance, another thing that's fantastic is this is the 11-inch box mount kit from Super Miata. Fantastic brakes. I cannot recommend these enough. So I had the original Nb non-sport brakes on this, and they were almost adequate with a case swap. They were just right at the top of their thermal capacity, and it was finally time to upgrade. So I went with the Nb2 Sport Brakes, and the Nb2 Sport Brakes were not great. So show my ugly mug here. The Nb2 Sport Brakes, they were really squishy, and so I had the XP10, and I tried later the XP12 pads on them, and still, no matter how I bled it, no matter how I adjusted the pedal, they were really squishy. Not so on these pads, or on this whole brake kit. So I actually adjusted the brake pedal thinking they were dragging. There is so little play, and these are such, they grab so immediately that I thought the brakes had to be dragging. But they are amazing brakes. I can't recommend these high enough. And for just the fronts and the pads, it was somewhere around $1,000, 900 and something, and very much worth it. One of the best mods I've done, dollar for dollar on this car yet. Next thing is the mirrors. This is a company named Seismic that does the mirrors. I think these are the 4th set of mirrors I've had on the Exocet, and they're concave, or sorry, convex, and really good at actually seeing what's behind you. And I can't recommend these enough as well. Oh, someone else checking on me. I'm just making a video. Thank you for checking.
Oh my God, that is so sick.
What's that?
It's an Exocet,
Yeah, it is an Exocet. You'll see this video on YouTube hopefully soon. No, not a problem. That's a cool motorcycle.
It's a K series?
Yeah, K24.
Oh my god, this is the sickest shit ever. Oh
thanks.
I have like an Nb, but this is like...
Nice. Yeah, this is based on an Nb. I'm about to go do naughty things up the canyon, but it'll be probably 10 minutes, so I won't catch you.
Okay, well, so cool seeing this.
Thanks, yeah. Have fun. That's the kind of attention this thing generally gets. So, yeah, a couple of cool dudes stopping by to make sure I'm okay. So anyway, yeah, these seismic mirrors, because you can't get a center post mount here and actually enjoy looking behind you with the seats as close as they are, having some convex mirrors are great. I've had these on for a few thousand miles. Unfortunately, I actually broke this one over here. A rock hit it, and so you can see it's cracked. I'm going to contact them, and I think they've got a pretty good warranty system, so I'm not sure if they'll replace that for free or not, but either way it was my fault, because what happens, rocks get thrown up off the back tire, and then it pits the mirrors. And so one of them actually hit just perfectly at the very top there and caused a problem and cracked the actual mirror. So part of the cost of doing business, I'm not upset. The one thing I do wish I'd found a long time before is better earplugs. This is from a company named Earpiece, and there's actually permanent disposable earplugs. These are made out of silicone. I was using the Howard Late pink and yellow ones for, well, basically until just recently, and I've got some tinnitus from both work and, you know, what I do for play, and these are so much better. So my ears are kind of sensitive, and I can't recommend these high enough either. So get a permanent set of earplugs if you value your hearing. The disposable Howard Late's pretty good for what they are, but not nearly as good as these. These are much better. Next thing is Honda. So I've got a Honda version 4 ECU in it. You can't see, it's buried in here, but I didn't realize you can actually plug your phone in and in real time monitor the engine statistics, including intake temps, coolant temps, all sorts of different stuff. And that's how I knew that I was cooling down the air quite a bit by having this aluminum plate there. Yeah, so it's fantastic in real time, not needing any sort of ECU reader. There's something you can plug into the OBD2 ports, and there's a little bit of delay, but Honda version 4 with Bluetooth, you just download the app. I think it's like 10 or 15 bucks, totally worth it. And yeah, so I've had this ECU in there for I think 4 years now, maybe a little over. Sorry, reaching for my notes here. And I never knew that until recently. My tuner showed me that. Finally, you can see what I'm wearing. This is literally the first time wearing this. What is it? Under Armour. Great for protecting arms against the sun. And it's cool enough in the sun and warm enough in the breeze. So you can see down there at the beach, it's mid to low 60s right now there at the beach, and I was warm enough. And then as I head up the canyon here, you guys are going to go with me. It should be cool enough as well. So yeah, I think it's for 17 bucks for these shirts at the Outland Mall. I think this was a good deal. And finally, the last thing is future plans. Two things I've really been wanting to do is get a 3.3 ring and pinion for the differential. First gear is still pretty useless. So I usually put it in first, just get it rolling for a second, and then put it in second. That way I save a little bit of life in the clutch. If I just put it in second and burn it a little bit, I'm abusing the clutch a little bit, and sometimes I can smell it. But it would be much nicer actually having a first gear that is usable, and having the RPM down a little bit down on the freeway. And the next thing is also a fuel cell. I know a lot of you guys have done fuel cells, and I really wish I had done one earlier. So I've had the car almost 8 years now, and I've never pulled the trigger on a fuel cell. Maybe when I make the next video, one will be in here. So those are the future plans. Enough yakking, let's go have some fun. sticking around this long, here's a bonus shot of the famous tunnels on Angeles Crest Highway.